Hey there, Daniel here. Hope you're doing really, really well. In this episode, we will address three emails / comments, potentially fourth one if we have enough time. Definitely going to talk about an email from Carlos, who started off using CBTi with some success, but having trouble with kind of like lack of energy, difficulty concentration, anxiety, those type of things. And then we have an email from Sophie, who is wondering if the Effortless Sleep Method by Sasha Stephens is helpful for her, if she has had if I know of other people who have done really well with that. And then we're going to go over a comment from Ola as well. So let's start with this email from Carlos. And by the way, nothing here is medical advice, just thoughts and comments that I hope will be helpful to the person that commented or an email and anybody else that is tuning in. So 3 days ago, this email came in from Carlos. And by the way, Carlos has contributed before and has written a really nice comment that I meant to make an episode out of, and one day I will. All right. Hi, Daniel. I emailed you some time ago about your YouTube channel and my insomnia that I was battling. Well, things have gotten better, but I'm still struggling with anxiety. Being committed to CBTi hasn't proved to be easy, but right now I'm at the stage where I'm not really worried about sleep, but I'm still not sleeping well. Any suggestions or advice that can help me through the process? And then I said, thanks for the email, and I said, do you mind sharing a little bit more details? And then Carlos said, yes, I started CBTi about 2 months ago. I sometimes bend the rules though. Sometimes I might wake up earlier or later by an hour or so. For example, if I have to be out of bed at 8 a.m., sometimes I'm not getting up until 9 a.m., but then the following day I go to sleep very late and wake up earlier. So following CBTi after a month is pretty difficult. Well, I tend to get discouraged over time and feel low energy, can't concentrate, my anxiety is higher when I don't sleep, feel not refreshed during the day when I get out of bed, have trouble initiating sleep, maintaining sleep throughout the night. But since I have underlying problems with anxiety, it makes it that much worse. Also, I tend to feel hopeless at times. Nobody seems to understand me, or people pretend not to have sleep or anxiety problems. They are topics that are just not talked about. Also, physicians are very poorly trained helping people with sleep problems. They only want to prescribe medications. Hope I answered your questions. You definitely did, Carlos. And again, thanks so much for reaching out here. And, several thoughts here. And first of all, you wrote here that I'm not really worried about sleep. That's really, really great. I always try to point out positive things, and that's a huge one, because fearing sleep, fearing not getting enough sleep, I should have said, or consequences of not sleeping well are such a huge reason, for having insomnia. So I'm glad about that. Now, you mentioned that you kind of bend the rules, and I don't think that is a huge deal, but it's something worth considering. Like if it is possible to kind of really commit to wake up time and get out of bed and start your day that time, that may be better. Because basically what I read here is that you've tried CBTi and you've had some benefit, and maybe if you were even more committed to it, you would have more benefit, or maybe not, but something to think about. Now, a couple of things. Like, I think overall what I read here is that your anxiety is high, and that may be a reason why, although you're not worried about not getting sleep, but you're still not sleeping well less. So maybe that is a driver of the insomnia at this time. And I'm becoming more and more, I'm learning more and more about anxiety because it's so important. But I'm not an anxiety expert, but I've learned a couple of things that I wanted to share. And first of all, a lot of people have heard me say this before, but episode pod 12, where I talked to Nick Wignall, is a really good one, which is really centered around anxiety, and he's a psychologist, knows a lot about this. And one thing that he told me about that I really believe in is kind of journaling in a very intense way. Like, you pick a time that's not too close to bedtime, but kind of like late afternoon, let's say 6 p.m. to 6:10 p.m. Like, you just set 10 minutes for just like writing down everything you're worried about, like, and really like intently trying to come up with every single thing you worry about and write them down on a piece of paper, and then repeating that every day. Like, If you do it one time, twice, it may not make a difference. But if it becomes routine, then your brain can kind of like stop bombarding you with those anxieties all the time, because you get them out, and you get them on paper every day. And another thing that can happen is that when you worry about things, you may be able to postpone them, say like, oh, well, I have time designated for that. So that's one thing. Now, two more things. So I did an episode the other day, I think it was late last week, where I talked about like automatic thoughts. And those are things that kind of like just automatically pop in our head because we have a certain belief. And sometimes that belief is not 100% true. And when you start questioning it, you can realize that, again, it's not 100% true. And then the entire kind of construct around it can kind of start loosening up, and you believe it less. You have less automatic thoughts, and those things can overall just, put you in a better place. So, I know very little about you, Carlos, except for these emails. But so I'm just picking this as an example from your recent email here. My anxiety is higher when I don't sleep, and that could very well be the case. But maybe it's not always the case, or maybe when you don't sleep, you're more anxious. Could it be the other way around? So I'm just using this as an example. So what you can do is you can pick things like that, kind of a belief or a thought, like my anxiety is higher when I don't sleep, and then start exploring it and questioning it. Meaning, like, one example of how to do that is like, how accurate is this? 100% true? Is this like, is my anxiety always, every single time I sleep, not as good? Is it always higher? Or is this true 100%? Or is this like 25% true or 50% true? And then when you start exploring thoughts and beliefs like that, you may end up finding that, oh, maybe I was just not completely accurate. Maybe it's not as quote unquote bad as I thought. And then again, kind of that can bring down fear and anxiety and make things better. So exploring automatic thoughts and read up on this, and this could be really, really, really good. And then it's interesting because the two most important things I took from this book I recently read was that one about automatic thoughts, and the second one was like chapter 5, which is about behavioral activation, where the author of that book talked about how oftentimes people that have, in that example, it was somebody who's depressed, always feel kind of tired, sluggish, low motivation, and spending in the example from the book, the fictional patient, I think Sally, was like spending a lot of time kind of resting and taking it easy, and always felt tired. And one question that the fictional therapist in that book brought up was, well, how has that been a good strategy for you? Meaning, has resting and kind of taking it easy, recuperating, led you towards feeling better? And then kind of where that conversation went is to say, like, it seems like a logical strategy to retreat, if you will, like take it easy, rest, but in fact that may be working against you, and what you feel is like almost impossible, maybe what you should do, meaning being more active. And what she says in that book was something like this, that sometimes being more active, which could be anything, like being more social, seeing friends more, being more physically active, or engaging in a hobby that you haven't engaged in a long time, or anything like that, can seem like a task that's almost impossible to overcome. And then she says, but you can start with like a minimal goal. You can ask yourself, like, what is like something I could commit to do every day, even if it's just like a 10-minute thing, something that I can do, just a little bit of every day, and commit to that, and then start there. And maybe that could be like a positive spiral that you realize, oh, I actually could do this thing and actually feel better doing this, and I could maybe extend it to 15 minutes and 20 minutes, and then that could be like a positive thing. It's a positive cycle, if you will. So and then just a few more comments here. I feel hopeless, nobody seems to understand me, and people, I hope this channel can help with that. And there's so many people that express similar things to you, Carlos, here. And although, yes, it's true, people don't really talk about it much, but it's there's so many people. You definitely have no reason to feel alone or unusual or anything like that, you know. Physicians are poorly trained, 100%. That, I hope that will get better. So yeah, with that said, Carlos, thanks so much. And, just reach back again if you have any other questions, and let us know how you're doing. And with that said, let's move over to this email from Sophia. And it came in 3 days ago. And just a little background, I connected with Sophia, I believe, early this year, maybe February or something like that. And she was, she tried CBTi, didn't really work out. I think she didn't try for that long though, but didn't really feel helpful. And then I tipped her off about like ACT, or acceptance commitment therapy, which I don't know if she tried that or not. But then she reached back out maybe a couple of weeks ago and said, I think I want to commit to CBTi. And then this email came in like 3 days ago. Good day, Daniel. I wanted to ask, I'm still having trouble with bad nights I get. I seem to fall back in the same place as I get very scared. You mentioned Sasha Stephens' book, and that is great. Do you know if anybody that has done it successfully, ? I just can't seem to shift the bad on nights and how to cope. I try not to care, but it just gets me and spoils all the good nights I had for the week. Kind regards. So firstly, you mentioned here that it spoils all the good nights I had for the week. Well, I totally get what you're saying, and what I'm about to say may seem like I didn't hear you or whatnot, but I just want to point out, like, always good to like focus on the positive. So you had, no matter if they feel like the bad nights spoil them, well, you had those good nights. Like, you can sleep, you can get there permanently, and it can happen. So like, hold on to that. And now going back to kind of your question here about Sasha Stephens' book, I looked at, because I know people even like on my channel have commented on how it's helped them. And if you look at episode 71, where I review the Effortless Sleep Method, you can see one of the comments is from a Miro Pananen, and she says, I read this book 5 years ago and I cured my insomnia with it. And I feel there has been at least a couple more similar comments on other episodes where I mentioned her book. So yeah, that's just one. So at least I can say, yes, this Miro Pananen, she cured her insomnia with this book and Sasha Stephens' methods. And just reading her book, I believe there are at least, if not in the millions, so at least like thousands of people who have gotten completely past their insomnia, or just gotten much better with using your book. Now, I think this is maybe the most important thing here is, I've had other people that ask me like, how likely am I to get better using CBTi, or how, can I go from 4 hours to 6 hours, or things of that nature. And it's natural to wonder, before you commit to something, it's natural to wonder, like, how likely is this to be successful? And now, when it comes to insomnia, committing, I am sure this is true in so many aspects of our lives, but it's equally true to insomnia, that the commitment is super important, because the questioning is really what kills sleep. We can take many examples. For example, people that are taking medications for insomnia and decide not to take them, that in itself is usually not a big problem. But the problem is the questioning, whether like, okay, I've stopped taking this medication, now what's going to happen? Or should I maybe take half the dose? What if I can't sleep at all? Should I take it tomorrow? What if I can't sleep at all for a week? What should I be doing? That whole questioning is really the big problem. And same thing when you're, let's say, deciding, should I try CBTi or not? And then you kind of try, and then you're like, but maybe it's not going to work. Maybe I should stop doing this already now. And then you retreat from it, go back to it. Like, the questioning part is really the problem. And it's interesting because Sasha Stephens, if you read her books, which I think are fantastic, but you can get a sense from reading her books that it's almost like a sect. Like, she writes it in a way as if like, either you do this and you commit to it, or like, I have no love for you, something like that. But I understand it in a way, because it only works if you truly like believe in it, commit to it. I mean, you may have some, of course, it's natural to have some skepticism, but you have to like basically, if you buy Sasha Stephens' book, The Effortless Sleep Method, she says in it like that if you don't do what suggest you do, then you're not going to get better. So again, like the commitment part is really important. Cool. So I think we answered that one. Hope I did, Sophia, and if not, then please let me know and I'll ask and make another reply. And then let's move here to a comment from Ola number 1. And this is a comment to Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia, The Deep Dive, which is an episode where I sit down and talk to Martin Reed and Michael Schwartz. And yeah, let's read it. I found CBTi in early 2018 when I had 2-3 months of waking up 2 or 3 hours early almost every night. It was very stressful, but the therapy, I was lucky to find a local psychologist that offered a CBTi program, and the book Say Goodnight to Insomnia, which it's all based on, educated me about sleep, and it really helped. I started sleeping great in week 5 to 6. I slept great until a month ago. Now I'm experiencing trouble getting to sleep. I'm doing everything, getting out of bed after 20-30 minutes of not being able to sleep, relaxation exercises, trying to eliminate negative sleep thoughts, no caffeine, no alcohol, keeping bedtime and wake time consistent, and I'm still struggling. I've revisited my CBTi counselor and we are going to work back through the program. I trust it will work again, but it's so frustrating how it just reoccurs for virtually no reason. I'm not stressed and I'm not worried about anything, but I guess it doesn't matter why it is happening. I just have to stay positive and work the program. So, Ola wasn't really asking for maybe a reply here, but I thought there was something I wanted to add to that, which was I've heard this before, that somebody had gone through like a CBTi course, done well, and then had trouble sleeping again, and then it doesn't seem to work. And I really believe a lot of this is because of expectations. That if something has worked in the past, you now have more of an expectation that it will work again, and that expectation and kind of like a little bit of pressure that it puts on these techniques that you've learned in the past is the reason it's not quite as successful the second time around. And just another comment, some CBTi counselors, psychologists, etc., don't highlight what's called sleep efforts very much. And I personally think it's a really important one. And so what is that? Well, a sleep effort is like anything you do to kind of try to produce sleep is a sleep effort. And this could be turning the lights down low, keeping it cool, wearing that sleep mask, taking supplements, avoiding alcohol, or, anything that you do to try to produce sleep essentially is a sleep effort. And I thought about you mentioned here that you've been doing a lot of things, getting out of bed. That's a good one, of course. Relaxation exercises can be a sleep effort. Like if you're kind of like doing a relaxation exercise to try to make yourself sleep, then it backfires. Trying to eliminate negative sleep thoughts, that's good, that's great. No caffeine, that could be a sleep effort too. I believe that if you have coffee, particularly that early morning one that makes you feel refreshed, etc., has, in my opinion, no impact on insomnia. And so like if you're you love your coffee but you're avoiding it to sleep better, that in a way can give the insomnia power, because it's like you've given into it. No alcohol, alcohol close to bedtime, I believe, can really disrupt sleep. But if you've gone like years, you had a glass of wine, in the afternoon and you slept good, then again, avoiding that can be a give to the insomnia and can make it worse. Keeping bedtime and wake time consistent. Well, wake time I think is super important to keep consistent. Bedtime is more like you should typically, as I'm sure spend less time in bed or not a lot of time in bed when you actively have trouble sleeping. But my opinion is that it's much better to say, I'm not going to go to bed before, for example, 11, but if I'm not sleepy by 11, then I shouldn't go to bed. So sometimes people keep that consistent bedtime at, let's say, 10 p.m. no matter what, I go to bed, even if they're not ready to sleep, and then that becomes a frustration. So I guess just a few pointers there, and I hope that once you go back to your therapist that you'll go back to sleeping. In fact, I'm very confident you will. I think it's worked in the past, it will work again. So that's good. And we have we've spent 19 minutes here, so I believe we have a little bit of time left to add just a word here to Jay, who has, contributed so much to the channel. And Jay wrote me a message. And by the way, for those of you new here, Jay is, he's concerned about this extremely rare condition called sporadic fatal insomnia, which, by the way, somebody taught me today I've been calling it, I've been saying it throughout throughout the life of this channel, that I call them, they shouldn't be called an insomnia, it should be called a neurodegenerative disease. But then let's see if I can find this comment. It was a really good comment from earlier today. Somebody said that I shouldn't call it that. I should call it a prion. Oh, here we go. This is from one day ago, a comment on Talking Insomnia number 4. LJ Melid said, these forms of prion diseases are synonymous with neurodegeneration. Oh, I guess I wasn't wrong there. But he said, like, generally they're called prion diseases now. So anyway, Jay, I think you should read this comment on Talking Insomnia number 4, which there's a lot of good information there. But anyway, here's the thing. Let's read this latest comment from Jay. Hi Daniel, I think once a month you should make a video on SFI. It would be nice. I still think I have this. On hot days, my friends or family will be saying, damn, it's cold, and I feel really cool. I also sweat a lot. I thought things were getting better, but in the past, I've just been sleeping under an hour. It's always, as I say all the time, good to focus on the positives. And you were getting better sleep in the past. That's great. I mean, I think is very, very encouraging that you went through a time period, even if it may have been short, where things were getting better. Now, another thing that I thought about as I read this book that I mentioned earlier in this podcast episode was how it's important to sometimes kind of question beliefs and kind of like explore how likely things are. And in that, that made me think of you and other people who are concerned about sporadic fatal insomnia. And by the way, as I always say, nothing is a medical device. Like, you have to talk to a doctor, of course, when you're concerned about your health. But sometimes that likelihood thing is good, meaning like asking oneself, like, okay, I sleep virtually nothing, and that's been going on for a while now. How likely is it that I have sporadic fatal insomnia, which, maybe 30 people in the entire history of documented history of medicine has had? And how likely is it that I have maybe paradoxical insomnia, where it feels like I don't sleep at all, which is actually very common? Just kind of that, just like asking yourself, like, what is the most likely, may be helpful, and maybe reduce some fear and help you sleep better. And with that said, I think I will conclude here. Or actually, you know what? I just saw literally a second ago, when I was looking for this comment, that there was another comment that I don't think I've addressed. So let's see here. Here it is from 11 hours ago. For some reason, didn't see it. But I think I'll address that another time. So sorry about that little last phrase. But thanks to everybody for writing comments and contributing. And I will be back with more tomorrow. Have a really, really nice week going forward. Bye-bye.